To the Titusville City Council meeting of October 9th, 2018 at 6:30. We have a quorum. I'll call this meeting to order. We have with us this evening Pastor Dory Valley of Hope Community Fellowship to give our invocation. Ma'am, if you will come up, please.
If you'll join me in prayer. Father God, we thank you so much that we were privileged to be born in the United States of America, that you have given us so many freedoms and poured out abundant blessing on each one of us. And for that, we say thank you tonight. You tell us in the scriptures that we're to pray for those who are in authority over us, that they would promote peace and order and justice. And therefore tonight, I pray for our mayor. I pray for this council. I'm asking that you would grant them wisdom to govern amid all the conflict that's happening in our times, that you would give them a sense of welfare and true needs of the people of this city, that they would have a thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting for our city, and the ability to work together in harmony, even when they may disagree. Lord, I ask for personal peace in each one of their lives and that they would find joy in the tasks that you've given them to do. I pray for the agenda that's set before them today. Give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in the city of Titusville. We thank you so much, and we just ask this in your precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. That was very nice. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you read the procedures for speaking?
Yes, sir. Individuals wishing to speak on public and non-public hearing agenda items must complete a sign-up card and present it to the clerk prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Sign-up and oath cards are located on the table in the council chamber over here on the side. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes for all agenda items.
Thank you, Clerk. Next item is approve the minutes of the special city council meeting on September 4th, 2018.
I move that we approve the minutes. I move that we approve the minutes of special council meeting on September 4th, 2018.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next item is special recognitions and presentations. Mr. City Manager.
Sir, before we get to that, I'd like to make a couple agenda adjustments. Number one adjustment will be item 5A, the North Brevard Park and Rec's annual report presentation will be tabled to the 23rd of October, your next meeting. The presenter had a schedule conflict last minute.
All right, do we need a motion on that?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a motion on that, please?
So moved. Go ahead.
So moved to reschedule at the same time.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously.
So our first presentation is the Florida Department of Transportation study. Judy Pizzo, Project Manager for Florida Department of Transportation District 5, and her team will present the most recent concept development study and final alternatives for State Road 406 Garden Street and US 1 corridor studies. After completing the initial corridor planning study in 2016, the Florida Department of Transportation moved into a detailed concept development study for US 1 from Laurel Place to Indian River Avenue and State Route 406 from South Lake Elementary School to Indian River Avenue corridors. These studies have produced concepts for the corridor. FDOT has recently presented all the alternatives in public meetings on 20 September 2018 and will be giving City Council a brief update on the progress of the project. Judy, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. It's good to
Mayor
have you here,
Johnson,
and you
council.
are also.
We're on. Okay. There we are, and we're on there too. Okay. As noted, the limits and such, I do want to indicate that these are two separate studies, although we have run them concurrently. A lot of folks seem to think it's just one study, so they have two separate ID numbers, and I don't know if you have a copy of the presentation in your packet. At the back of the packet is CFL Roads that shows where all the previous materials can be found. And for the public, that is up online, all the past materials on centralfloridaroads.com, cflroads.com. So that being said, how do I get this to move? There it is.
There we go.
Okay.
Good job.
So there are the limits as previously indicated. We'll just go through this rather quickly. So you can tell, again, here, can't see that far. As noted, these studies were originally requested by the City of Titusville. We did the original corridor planning studies, which were completed in 2016, and we anticipate this concept development study on these two studies to be complete by the end of this year. And is it moving?
Yeah, it's just moving the bottom.
Okay. Let me back up. So again, that's pretty much what I've just said on what we're discussing, what these have gone through. And if I haven't hit this too far, I want to talk on US 1 briefly because it's the less change has come out from the study for the US 1 corridor study. I want to emphasize that there was initially a roundabout proposed at the south end there at US 1 in Grace Street. That has been shelved. We're not going to be doing that. Instead, we will be considering the roundabout there at US 1 and 406, which Kevin Freeman here with me from VHB will be going into more detail in the presentation. Additionally, for US 1, we were looking at pedestrian safety, looking at how the crossings aligned, were they properly signalized. So those are things that are going to be addressed for US 1 future. For State Road 406, we're talking about the median improvements as well as the addition of a roundabout at Singleton and some other light improvements such as the bike lanes and a possible lane modification. I want to emphasize by the time the department has come to this level of analysis, these suggested improvements, the lane modifications, the roundabouts have been thoroughly vetted through the engineering scheme of things internally with the department. We would not put this in writing if it wasn't something that couldn't be done. I know there's concerns about whether we're going to affect traffic flow or such has come to the surface, but this is something that Kevin will be addressing in his portion of the presentation. We would not be putting this to paper if these weren't viable alternatives. I want to emphasize that. So the proposed alternative not moving forward, as I said, was the roundabout there at Grace Street on US 1. So I won't beleaguer that anymore. And then the future conditions no build. I'm going to turn this over at this point to Kevin Freeman and let him introduce himself as well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Judy. Hi, my name is Kevin Freeman with VHB, a consultant with the DOT. We were tasked with conducting this study. We've been to the City Council. This is our second time now. We did it back in the planning study. We took those options that were accepted by the City Council back then and moved forward into the more detailed analysis. And as we've seen throughout both of these studies, is that from a 406 standpoint, and a US 1 standpoint, the corridors aren't getting close to the capacity level that is seen for a 4-lane divided roadway or to a one-way pair. So we've identified that as an opportunity. Is there an opportunity to reutilize some of that area? We've also identified some safety needs. There is the crash statistics out there are slightly above the state average, and as you get closer to US 146, they're significantly above the state average. So we identified that as being an issue or safety. There's need to be safety needs to address these items. So some of the things that we've identified on 406 was the need for bicycle lanes to help improve that multimodal mobility throughout the corridor. We've identified that the parking out there is highly underutilized, very sporadic, and there might be an opportunity to kind of reutilize that space and provide more of a connection to the existing trail that's out there at just on the east side of this corridor, as well as the overall coast-to-coast connection. So we looked at removing the on-street parking, providing the standard FDOT 7-foot buffered bike lanes, looked at widening the medians, as well as providing an access management plan where we kind of take some of those median openings, close them up, and strategically place them to minimize the amount of conflict points that are in the corridor. This will help increase the safety in this corridor. For the section from Dixie to Indian River, this is where we identified the ability to kind of reduce the travel lanes. And that, as you go from 95, the traffic, as you know, from 95, as you go out towards Indian River, it drops along the corridor. It goes into downtown, through other avenues. But as we see, in both studies, the traffic consistently drops, and the demand is not near as high as you get to the east side. So we identified that as being an opportunity because as you get east of Dixie, the right-of-way does go from 100 feet down to 80 feet. With the existing 5 lanes that you have out there, you don't have much room to do anything. So with the reduction of traffic, we've identified in a future year 2040 analysis with very conservative numbers that a 2-lane roadway would work in that section, and then providing bicyclists the option for the bike lane, as well as separation to be able to do transit features, to be able to do landscaping, potentially a wider sidewalk, that kind of thing going into the downtown area. Another alternative that we've identified is the roundabout at Singleton. As you know, there was recently done improvements done at this intersection to help increase the safety, but based on the items that we have, or the crashes that we have found out there, that this could help this intersection from a safety standpoint. And so from a cost to benefit, as well as what we've seen out there, this could actually be, the cost to benefit could be more beneficial from a safety perspective than from a cost, the issues with the cost. So from the DOT perspective, we found this to be a viable option to move forward in a future analysis. So this one, 406 US 1, this one kind of came up in the planning study and was very preliminary, and I identified it had many issues. It had many, some significant impacts. But as we got into it, we do a very detailed cost to benefit analysis, and we used, safety numbers that are provided by the DOT, as well as look at the existing crashes out there and identify, are they severe crashes? We see left turn crashes, right turn, or angle crashes that are prominent in that area, and those are usually big ticket items. The costs are relatively high. So when we looked at the cost of benefit for this, it actually came out to be a benefit for the area, which will help reduce crashes by up to 76 to 90% respectively on from injury to fatality. And so we identified this as being an option, or an option that will also help improve the traffic operations from a future condition. We've looked at this on both scenarios, and this will actually take the two signals that are currently there and remove them and put them into one roundabout. So this graphic essentially labels the resurfacing to the west that is currently being funded this year. That is going to take out the signal at Palm. That signal's very low volume, highly underutilized. So they are removing that with the resurfacing project, and then with the roundabout, it will take out the two signals. So essentially, there'll be 3 signals removed in that section, which 3 signals in 540 feet is very difficult to maneuver, and there's a lot of crashes associated with that because a lot of people are looking at the signal, but just beyond it, and seeing that go green and this one's red, and they're going right through it. And that's some of the issues that we've heard from residents and stakeholders throughout the corridor. So the final recommendations are the media improvements throughout the US 146 corridor. This is the access management plan that we talked about, the addition of the bike lanes throughout the 406 corridor, lane modifications from 406 to Dixie Avenue, in the roundabouts at Singleton and 406 and US 1 is what came out of this study. We've also, I'll let Judy go. We've also had a project visioning team, which included many people from the city, the local stakeholders, Space Coast TPO, as well as the SCAT, and they've been involved throughout the whole process since back in 2015, identifying alternatives and kind of vetting these concepts throughout. And we've presented, like Scott said, we presented these back in September 20th to the public. So as you can see, we finished the planning study. That was what was done back in 2016. As far as this project, we're at the very end of it. We're presenting the findings to the TPO as well as the City Council. And then we end the concept development phase in December of 2018. And currently, design, right-of-way, and construction is currently not funded for any of these projects moving forward at this point.
And that's it. Have any questions for us?
I do. Do you have any projection at all as to when these may happen?
That's a discussion you need to have with the Space Coast TPO. You need to get them on the priority list. This at one time.
I'm on the TPO, ma'am.
Yeah, this was at one time on the priority list, and other things have come up, so.
I'm somewhat concerned with the roundabouts. I know you had that meeting. Did you have any comments on those?
Is this the Singleton roundabout or the US 1 roundabout?
Probably both, but the double is probably the more controversial one that I hear about.
Well, they have both been thoroughly discussed at all of the public meetings, as well as previous council in past years, and had been openly accepted and understood what the safety and that sense of gateway feature that the Singleton as well as the US 1 roundabouts would provide, but the emphasis was definitely on the safety. In fact, the roundabout there at US 1 is in the traffic operations safety report that the department has. It was recently included in their safety study as being a very viable alternative to the 2 signals that would be there after the one signal goes away with the resurfacing job.
And we have heard a little bit of outreach on the roundabouts as well, just from the fact of the Vieira roundabout to the south. A lot of people are concerned with what happened with that, and the DOT has learned a lot since that roundabout has been installed, and they've actually installed quite a few very efficient roundabouts throughout the district right now, and are planning to do a bunch more throughout the district. So there's a lot of changes that have gone on since that roundabout. And
I want to jump in on that because that sort of implied that Vieira was the department's roundabout. It isn't. It was a private developer that built and maintains that roundabout. We are working with Brevard County to come up with some solutions to make that roundabout more functional, but that's entirely up to Brevard County to move forward on any improvements for the Vieira roundabout.
Yes, ma'am. I've been told that was underbuilt, not built correctly for the traffic.
I'm
And
not
that's
an
what's caused the
engineer.
problem, but it has put a stigma on roundabouts in Brevard County. You have to recognize that. And especially now, this double has a lot of people scratching their head at this point. Will there be any more presentations on this for the public down the road before it actually gets going?
The Space Coast TPO, we're doing a presentation on Thursday for them, and that'll be our final presentation.
Okay, well, I'll see you
So
on
folks
Thursday.
are welcome to be there.
I will be there, ma'am.
Okay.
Any questions from, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go right ahead. Vice Mayor, you're first.
Thank you. So I think maybe just more comments than questions. So, so twofold. I was on council during the previous discussions on this, and I'm not. My recollection was that although we understood the presentation, it was not funded through 2040, and I'm not sure that the takeaway from that was that this was going to be an amazing thing. I think that we took the presentation, so that was my takeaway from our previous meeting. And what I can tell you is that, I'm as a council member, I feel like we're getting this, and I'm respectfully, because you put a ton of work into this, so. But I feel like we're getting this jammed down our throat. Like we're getting jammed a project that the community has screamed loud when it was first brought to us that there were portions of this that they did not want. The expanding of the change of the lanes, the size of that's easy, the median. But the moment you hit the roundabout, I'm telling you that for the next week, I know that I'm about to start getting a ton of questions, calls about this roundabout. And keeping in mind, similar to the mayor, I've been overseas, they function great, but the reality of it is that if a community doesn't want it, I don't understand what else we could do to say, please don't, stop, no, so and so on. And I am not sure that if the small amount of people that are gonna probably show up to a meeting are really gonna do that. And so, if that's what it's going to take in order to shift design or shift whatever, then I don't expect it, but I think that we're into a project that's not people don't want it, and the money and time, most importantly, your time, my impression is that you all's time is 1,000 times more viable and valuable for something that the community would want as a project. As an example, the roundabout on 406, like I am imagining nightmares for that. And the reason for that is simply because we've got people from out of town going out to play Olinda. It's a different kind of design. It's not something that they're accustomed to. I would see concern. And the local aspect is, I'll go one further, people are gonna see that and go, no way, right? And so as a community member, that would be my feedback. The other roundabout, I think to the mayor's, there's something to be said for bad taste in the mouth, maybe done poorly, but bad taste in the mouth. And I respect the safety concerns because I think Singleton's our second leading accidents, right? Mm-hmm. So I respect the safety concerns, but I think the method that we're trying to address that is not one that is welcome to the community. Although I get it, that has been my perception since we've started talking about this.
I completely respect that, and as both of these intersections are currently signalized, we are not going to rip out a signal to throw in a roundabout, but it is the agency's policy in the future. Should something come about where the signal something has to be done with the signal, and this is hypothetical, this is obviously not going to happen in the next year or two, or maybe even in the next decade, who's to say? But the department's policy now is, and this is statewide, if not around the nation, definitely a statewide policy, is that roundabouts would be the first consideration before putting in a signalized intersection. Now, these are already signalized, so we're saying that these work, these function, but you currently have a signalized intersection, so
Yep. Okay.
that's where it is today.
Member Diesel?
Okay.
You mentioned that there are many roundabouts in this district that work. Can you tell us a couple that we can go see?
US 1, or excuse me, State Road 44 at Grand Avenue is actually one I know this one most just because I've been there several times. It's one that is just east of the St. Johns River on State Road 44. And when I went there, the drawbridge was up, and there was about a 40-car queue in the heading east. And I was probably 38th of the 40. And there was the roundabout was about 1.5 miles down the road from there. And by the time I got there, there was only a 5-car queue, and it lasted, I mean, maybe 30 seconds. So, I mean, that's one. What's that?
To go through it.
To go through, right. That's one. There's US 1, US 1 in, is it Matanza? There's a couple coming in that are currently in design and that's the one that I know is being built. There's the one in State Road 441, 471 that is going to be built. So there's a couple that are coming in, but I know the most recent one is the State Road 44.
Okay.
Grand Avenue.
Clearly, it sounds like this is kind of the new answer to the problem. And I must admit, when I first saw the drawings and saw a roundabout or two in Titusville, I thought I'd never see that, that's for sure. And then it's already been noted, and I'll just re-note it. There's a real bad taste in people's mouth about roundabouts. And unfortunately, they don't know who built it. They just know they don't like it.
True.
And I've gotten caught in that once or twice. So once you get in, it's hard to get out sometimes. Outside of that, I would kind of second your motion concerning 3 lights within 540 feet. I've been one of those guys that looked at the light beyond the light and said, oh.
Me too.
So I think that that's well thought out. I think your plan's well thought out. I think that you guys have worked very hard. It was an easy plan to look at and understand. I think the biggest problem we're going to have is the thought about roundabouts. And then, of course, the other problem is I heard that none of these are funded. That's always an issue. And I sure would like to, anything we can get road-wise in this town funded, that'd be great, except maybe the roundabouts.
We hear you. Okay.
Member Sokol?
Yeah, I just would like to second what both of the other members had said. My question would be, what kind of prompted this type of proposal? Was it the safety concerns primarily, or I see, like you mentioned, several things, but I'm just curious as to what was the driving force to say roundabout is the best solution here?
The main thing that comes up is when we looked at the safety analysis, I know the segment of US 146 especially, that's been on, I know the TPO it's been on and off the TPO, one of the highest links for the crash rates in the whole district. And mainly just because it's such a short section and there's 2 signals, I mean, 250 feet away, those are high. But I mean, if you start to break down the crashes there and what you're seeing, I mean, you're seeing a lot of angle crashes, left turn crashes. Those are usually at an intersection, they're rear end crashes. Those are your main crashes at an intersection. But when you start seeing angle crashes and left turn crashes, that's what prompted some issues, because those are typically your higher severity crashes, fatalities, injuries. You know, that's when people are getting T-boned, and so that's what prompted some of these. And when you start to look at roundabouts, it takes away those left turn angle crashes. It just comes into side swipes, rear ends at lower speeds. So that's why, you know, we can revamp some of those injury crashes and even potentially fatality crashes to lower impact crashes. And that's why we started looking at roundabouts at some of those intersections that were identified as some higher crash rates.
Are there any other alternatives that you've seen work?
Well, I know that the DOT has done a safety study, at least for US 146, and as Judy mentioned, the roundabout option was a longer term option. There are some short term and mid term options that they've identified that the traffic ops has run through. I've looked at it. It's been a little while since I've looked at it, but I know there's a plan to get some of that stuff going. But I think they were waiting to see what come out of this study to see if this is going to get pushed forward before they start moving forward with any of the other stuff. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I need a motion to accept the presentation.
I'll make a motion to, I'm sorry, I'm not used to making those motions. Our motion person's not here. I'd like to make the motion to accept the FDOT's State Road 406 Garden Street and US 1 corridor studies.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, folks.
Thank
you.
Nice presentation. Next item is boards and commissions. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir. The first item is the Titusville Housing Authority accept their semi-annual report as written.
I have a motion to accept the Housing Authority semi-annual report as written.
I'll make the motion to accept the Titusville Housing Authority semi-annual report as written.
I have a motion. I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next item, sir.
Planning and Zoning Commission Chair Sean Williams is requesting council approve of leave of absence from 17 October 2018 to 30 November 2018 due to upcoming work-related travel. Staff is recommending you approve the leave of absence requested by Planning and Zoning Chairman Mr. Sean Williams.
I need a motion to approve the leave of absence.
I will move to approve the leave of absence request for Planning and Zoning Commission Chair Sean Williams from October 17th, 2018 to November 30th, 2018.
Well done. We have a motion. We have a second. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next item.
Yes, sir. We've provided council an updated North Brevard Commission on Park and Rec semi-annual report hard copy. We received some changes late today, so you have that revised copy. So staff is recommending that you accept the North Brevard Commission Park and Rec semi-annual report as written.
I need a motion, please.
I would move to accept the North Brevard Commission on Parks and Recreation semi-annual report as written.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously. Next is petitions and requests from the public present. Anyone wishing to speak, please come up. And the next person, please come up to and sit down forward so it won't take so much time to get up here. You're next, sir.
Thank you. My name is Douglas Sears Kniff Jr., and this is one little addition to the bullying to violence packet. I'll spare you the 4 Bible verses. You can read that at your own discretion for your enjoyment. We are on a mission of impossible, but with faith in God, we together will replace melting limestone boulders and install Florida State #1 recommended seawalls with 5 by 5 by 5 red sand chunks that are filters for contaminated water drainage to be perfectly safe and clean before our new lifetime seawalls cry good filtered water out of their weeping holes into our environment of the Indian River Lagoon. We together will remove bacterial contamination on plastic, diamond mesh polypropylene, and stop FWC documented algal bloom, MRSA, C. diff bacterial contamination, flesh-eating diseases inside of lifted up culvert pipes, limestone boulders, inside and underneath plastic chunk bags and oyster restoration diamond mesh mats that are from the dirty dealings of science technologies, ideological economic development. Marine life killing projects from builders, construction contractors, friends, stakeholders, sponsors, and clients of the Nature Conservancy who mentor the University of Central Florida Orlando campus and FWC Science Enforcement at St. Petersburg, Florida Marine Fishery Stein Division. Project Indigo with 8 oyster restoration attachments at the last 3 hours of 7 hours with the multiple series of phone calls on 5 telephones at once at the same time in both ears, said Wendy, the wife of the CPA who wrote up the application, and she wrote up the attachments that Bill Green of the Southeast Mosquito Control of Volusia County and her husband wrote up on his part of Ron Brockmeyer of the St. John's District in Orlando. So please support this above. And what this means, to interpret it a little bit better for you, is that the limestone boulders that you've put on the shorelines of Titusville are melting and leaching and dropping acid down into the soil, releasing chemicals into the water, and lifting gas upward. When you factor in that cannonball, Stromboli, cannonball jellyfish migrate east, and they move into the inlets down to their tide break 6 hours and 15 minutes. 6 hours and 15 minutes back, they are secreting in this bacterial contamination that's FWC documented, mentioned above, and they're secreting out red lung stinging venomous gel on their way out to the inlet, and then called plankton by the permit writer who was hired by Jeff Collins of the Department of Army to write the permit in the first place.
Okay, your time is almost up, sir, if you want to finish up.
Well, I'm done saying what I had to say, and I'll see you next meeting. And until I can get my website going, we'll just
Okay, so
continue to brief you.
One thing, I apologize, I failed to ask you for your name and address for the record. Would you please give us
I
that?
gave it to your clerk, but my name's Douglas Sears Kniff Jr., and I've got a post office box in Scottsmore. I got another one at the Brevard Sharing Center, and right now I'm on a homeless status. I'm in between locations.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Next speaker, if you'll make your way up. Is there anyone else speaking? I see no one. Go to consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Any cards, clerk? Council, any council member want to pull any of the items? Okay, on item 8C, we've provided a hard copy letter that was inadvertently omitted from the agenda. So you have that hard copy letter should you have any questions about that item. So I'll read for the record. Consent agenda item 8A, subject to resolution of rental agreement terms by the city attorney and city manager. Approved FY 19 preferred rate agreement from Enterprise Lease Company of Orlando, Florida at a monthly rate of $670 per vehicle for Titusville Police Department operations not to exceed $24,120. Consent agenda item 8B, approve the award of contract to Gregaria Construction Incorporated of Titusville, Florida in the amount of $622,745 for the construction of the South Street Basin baffle boxes and authorize the mayor to execute the contract. Consent agenda item 8C, authorize staff to sign FEMA and state-related Hurricane Irma documentation for reimbursement. Consent agenda item 8D, approve the award of work order ECTS W008 to Environmental Consulting Technologies Incorporated to perform and provide EADS Court and Satterfield Road stormwater retrofit design services in the amount of $62,790 and authorize the mayor to execute the work order. Consent agenda item 8E, approve advisability to amend procedural technical manual to include the required citizen participation plan for the development requiring a master plan approval. Consent agenda item 8F, approve change order number 1 in the amount of $65,797.79 to contract CN 18B40 to SDV Services LLC for work including additional weekly pumping, additional weekly partial bypass efforts, ERCP stormwater pipe replacement, slip lining, and restoration of the driveway to Ace Hardware, and authorize the mayor to execute the change order. Consent agenda item 8G, approve the strategic alliance memorandum with the United States Small Business Administration and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement. Consent agenda item 8H, approve the First Amendment to the interlocal agreement between Space Florida and the City of Titusville providing site and building plan review, permitting an inspection services portion of Spaceport territory within Brevard County, and authorize the mayor to execute the agreement upon approval by the city attorney. Consent agenda item 8I, approve change order number 1 to BMATS LLC of New Smyrna Beach, Florida in the amount of $23,849 for additional planning and maintenance of floating wetland islands at the senior center, and authorize the city manager to execute the change order. Consent agenda item 8J, approve the 2019 Cigna Medicare Supplement and Medicare Part D prescription drug plan renewal for city retirees eligible for Medicare with no premium change to the current 2018 rates and no plan design changes for the approved 2019 Aetna Medicare Advantage plan renewal at a rate decrease of approximately $21 per member per month and no plan design changes. Consent agenda item 8K, approve the purchase of a Great All hydraulic excavator model XL in the amount of $434,608 from Great Southern Equipment Company of Orlando, Florida, to replace the existing Great All at the approved FY budget. Consent agenda item 8L, approve the attached budget amendment establishing necessary funding for sole source purchase of retrofit stormwater CCTV vans from Clues Incorporated of Orlando, Florida, in the amount of $59,935. Additionally, authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Consent agenda item 8M, authorize the purchase of a 2019 Chevrolet Traverse vehicle and associated emergency lighting and siren equipment from AJ Fleet Sales in the amount of $33,768.
Thank you, sir. I need a motion to approve agenda items A through M.
I move to approve consent agenda items 8A through M.
And I need a second of the motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Not hearing any. We'll take a roll call vote, please, clerk.
Member Diesel?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Behringer?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item is ordinances, second reading, public hearing, and related action.
Yes, sir. This next item is item 9A, ordinance number 35, 2018, relating to temporary signs. An ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 32 signs to amend content-based restrictions, specifically amending Section 32.1, purpose of regulations, scope, 32.2, definitions, and 32.4, exempt signs, replacing Section 32.5, specialty signs, with Section 32.5, temporary sign regulations, deleting Section 32.7, political signs, amending Section 32.8D, billboards, amending Section 32.21, miscellaneous restrictions and prohibitions, amending Section 32.26, off-premises signs and billboards, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, effective date, and incorporation into the code. This is the second reading and public hearing for this ordinance.
In Reed v. Town of Gilbert, the United States Supreme Court addressed the constitutionality of local sign ordinances that had different criteria for different types of temporary non-commercial signs. In response to this decision, staff is proposing that the code provisions regulating temporary signs be changed. At their 19 September 2018 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended sending the ordinance back to staff to allow additional time to revise the language to address additional signage during specific timeframes, such as elections, and for temporary signs associated with properties for sale. The vote was 5-0. As directed by council at your 25 September meeting, changes. This is your second reading and final public hearing of Ordinance 35, 2018. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have regarding this ordinance.
Ms. Pusaka, do you have a presentation or
No, sir, only for
comments?
questions only.
Council, any questions for Ms. Pusaka? I see none. I'll open the public hearing. Clerk, do we have any cards?
No, sir.
Close the public hearing. We need a motion on this item.
I move to accept the ordinance number 35, 2018, relating to temporary signs.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oops, sorry. Roll call vote.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Behringer?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Member Diesel?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next item.
Next item is 9B, ordinance number 45, 2018, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending ordinance number 60, 1988, which adopted the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville, by amending the future land use, transportation, conservation, capital improvement, infrastructure, housing, coastal management, recreation, open space, intergovernmental coordination, and public school facility elements of the comprehensive plan as identified in the major issues of the evaluation and appraisal report, EAR, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
At least every 7 years, pursuant to Rule Chapter 73C49 Florida Administrative Code, the city is required to determine whether the need exists to amend the comprehensive plan to reflect changes in statutory requirements since the last time the comprehensive plan has been updated. Staff determined that there are several changes were necessary to bring the comprehensive plan into compliance with state requirements. City Council directed staff to prepare a EAR report. The report was submitted by the 18 May deadline. The LAP recommended the city consider revising the future land map prior to adoption to include long-term planning period of at least 10 years from the effective date of the amendment. The Community Development Department agreed to the recommended change to the FLU map. In addition, St. John's Water Management District requested that the city update the water management work plan once the district completes its Central Springs and East Coast Regional Water Supply Plan. Water Resources Department agreed to the request, and City Council, at the 19 September 2018 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, acting as the local planning authority, they recommended approval of the following with changes. Consider amending the 20% threshold for properties located within the coastal high hazard area. Number 2, modify rather than delete CE policies 1.15 and 1.19 to keep the requirement from the environmental survey. And number 3, remove the reference to the Taylor Creek Reservoir and infrastructure element, objective 2.5 D1. The vote was 5-0. This is your second reading and public hearing. Staff is here to answer any questions that you may have concerning the update of the EAR.
Ms. Busaka, any comments?
I just have one. In addition to what the city manager stated, there was also a discussion about changing the school policies, and the staff has added that should the interlocal agreement be discontinued for any reason, that the acceptable level of service would be one that the city and the school board mutually decide upon. So we have done as the local planning agency has recommended that we do, and as council also.
Okay. I see lights coming on. Member Diesel.
I just have a quick comment that I would be remiss if I didn't make, and that is that when I went through the agenda and I went through this report, I couldn't help but write the words "well done." And then I started thinking, as we saw the CRA report again from Mr. Parrish in this case, it could be Ms. Busaka, it could be Kevin. The reports the staff does for us are amazing, just amazing. And the graphics, and sometimes I feel like they're making them just for me because they're easy to understand. So that being said, on my margins in this area, I simply wrote "well done," and I just thank you all for that.
Thank you. I hate to break your heart, but they make it easy for me. You just happen to be a beneficiary of that.
I will second everything that Member Diesel said. But, Member Stokel.
Yep. I just had a quick question about the recommendations. Do you agree with them? Do you see any concerns with them from P&Z?
No, I think that P&Z in general makes things better.
Okay.
And so the more input that we get, so I think that the document is better than when we gave it to you.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't see any. I'll open the public hearing. Clerk, are there any cards? I'll close the hearing.
I move that we accept ordinance number 45-2018, Comprehensive Plan Evaluation and Appraisal Review, EAR, Base Comprehensive Plan Amendments Public Hearing.
With conditions?
With conditions. And I'm not going to know all those.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes. Oh, call it roll call. I caught it that time.
There you go. Good job.
Vice Mayor Behringer?
Yes.
Member Stool? Yes. Member Diesel?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes. Next item, sir.
Next item is 9C, ordinance number 46, 2018. An ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, updating the 5-year capital improvement schedule of the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville for the 2019-2023 horizon, relating to the capital improvement element and providing for an effective date.
Section 163.31773B of the Florida statute requires the city have a 5-year capital improvement program of the capital improvement element to be updated annually. All local governments are required to include a capital improvement element in a comprehensive plan that considers the need for location of public facilities and provides a component that outlines the principles for construction, extension, or increase in capacity of public facilities, as well as a component that outlines principles for correcting existing public facility deficiencies which are necessary to implement the comprehensive plan. The planning period for this element is 5 years. The Planning and Zoning Commission, local planning agency, has recommended approval of this ordinance unanimously. This is your second and final public hearing of ordinance 46, 2018.
Ms. Busaka? No comments? I'll open the public hearing. Any cards on this item, clerk?
No, sir.
I'll close the public hearing. I see Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And it was just a comment, sir. When we talk about capital improvements, roads are a big deal and our parks are a big deal. Last year's hurricane was because there was a lack of fatalities and injuries that were associated to the specific, just how big that hurricane was. We sometimes, I think it's very easy to forget how much damage was done to our infrastructure. And, to this council and to city manager's credit, that's $9 million to get our parks back to about where they were and plus some. And $9 million is a lot of investment into our parks over the future. So I just want to make sure that folks understand that if a park is closed down or if there's a pipe that is exposed or so on and so on, that we're talking about a lot of money just to get back to kind of where we were. So just to make that note, $9 million is a lot of money to talk about parks, but that's what it's going to take.
Any other comments? I see no lights. On this item?
I move that we approve ordinance number 6-2018, capital improvement element annual update.
Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Member Stokel? Yes. Member Diesel?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Behringer?
Yes.
Next item, sir.
Yes, sir. Right-of-way application number 1-2018, request to vacate a public right-of-way. The applicant, Lois Ward, on behalf of Stephen L. Johnson, is requesting the public right-of-way located at Parker Drive North be vacated. The applicant requests that the right-of-way and an unapproved right-of-way be vacated for purposes of developing a vacant lot near the rear of 3945 Alpine Lane. If the right-of-way is vacated, staff recommends 3 conditions, including that a fully executed access and utility easement over the entire vacated right-of-way are received from the property owners adjacent to the right-of-way in the form acceptable to the city and consistent with the draft easement presented to council at a public hearing. This resolution shall not be recorded on the public records until the compliance with all conditions are achieved and approved easements are received by the city. Upon receipt, the easements shall be held in escrow pending the fulfillment of the conditions of the vacation. Second, that all necessary deed easements and/or variances are obtained to ensure that those properties abutting the vacant portion of Parker Lane have legal access to the public right-of-way. And 3, in the event of compliance with the conditions set forth herein are not achieved within 90 days of the date of approval of the vacation, this resolution shall become nil and void. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval 5-1 with staff's recommended conditions from resolution section 2A and B and C, and also recommended section C be changed from 90 days to 180 days. Recommendation also included that the owner applicant must agree not to build over any water lines or sewer lines. That is up to the owner applicant to locate all utility lines prior to building. Staff recommends denial of the right-of-way vacation 1-2018 and related resolution 17-2018, vacating, abandoning, and discontinuing certain public streets located at Parker Drive, located north of Block 62, revised plat of Indian River City, Plat Book 4, page 12, Section 22, Township 22 South, Range 32 East. And staff is available to answer any questions that you may have regarding the right-of-way vacation.
Any comments, Ms. Busaka?
I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes. Any questions of council to staff? I see no lights. I'll open the public hearing. Are there any cards on this, clerk?
Yes, sir. The applicant, Lois Ward, is here.
Mr. Ward.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Mayor, Council. We've been dealing with this for some time. We have, as we're required part of the application, to contact all users of the right-of-way, and that's 6 different users, including 2 city departments. 5 of the 6 have no objection to the vacation right-of-way. And the 6th was the water resources, and they objected because of the location of sewer and water lines within the right-of-way and concern about access to those. Part of the planning and zoning recommendation was to locate the driveway between the lines. The map that's a part of your packet and was also in P&Z leads a lot of confusion because they misrepresent the exact location of those lines. The sewer line's in the middle of the right-of-way, which will place it right on the edge of what we're vacating, but we're giving an easement. And the water line's about 5 foot off the right-of-way. In other words, there's about 25 feet between the water and the sewer lines and plenty of room to build a 16-foot standard residential driveway in there, which would be our intent. We're in total agreement with planning and zoning recommendations and the conditions, including we need 180 days because there's a couple things. We have another variance pending, and we need to get that off the books and settled before we decide to follow up with this. And
Can you come a little forward, sir?
I'm sorry. And if that doesn't, we'll have to seek other alternatives, but we think this is viable, and we'd like to proceed with this and vacate the right-of-way and pursue meeting the conditions. If we can't meet the conditions, then the right-of-way doesn't get vacated, so we're happy to comply.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to answer any questions, or if there's anything.
Any questions? Mr. Ward? Go right ahead.
Yeah, so my understanding, do you have 2 variances going to Board of Adjustments and Appeals right now, or what's the status with that?
We have 1 variance pending. We had another we applied for and then withdrew. One of the reasons was staff was objecting to that, but we're pursuing this. If this is granted before Mr. Johnson can build his house, we'll have to reapply for the other variance.
Okay, so the one that is not, the one that you are currently waiting on, which one is that one? Is that
The one that's pending would make this null and void. We would need the vacation if
Okay.
we're granted the variance we have requesting. If
Okay.
that's denied and this is granted, then we'll apply for another variance to make it happen.
Okay.
It is confusing, ma'am.
Yeah, I know. So when should you find out about that one? When is that decision getting made?
The next BAA meeting, I believe, is the 24th of this month.
I believe that's correct.
And is that the variance for building on less than the
That's the
minimum?
variance requesting building a house on Dirt Street. Staff, period.
Okay,
So that means we wouldn't need the vacation, and we would
Okay.
not follow up with these conditions, and it would be
Okay.
null and void, because it wouldn't be necessary.
what about lot size? Was that the other variance?
That is the one we withdrew to create the variance to the flag lot size.
Okay, and you wouldn't need that one anymore as well?
Yes, we would.
Okay, so-
If we lose
okay,
the one that's pending.
okay. So if you get the one that is pending, you will not need, that
No
supersedes
more
the other
variances are
one?
needed, no more permissions are needed for anything.
Okay, okay. Oh my gosh, okay.
Any other questions of Mr. Ward?
I could have made it more complicated.
I know,
No,
just
no,
like,
you couldn't.
I just want to make sure.
Guess I could.
Yeah, you're right. You could.
Okay.
Staff, would you like to explain what the problem is with the 6th vote, the Water Department?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Did you want to know about the planning and zoning's recommendation or about
Well,
the?
you can do.
The
do
denial,
both.
yeah.
The denial was Secretary Chambers voted no because he felt that the city should determine the location of the sewer and water lines as opposed to requesting that the applicant do that.
Yeah, we agreed to do that.
I'm not getting something here. Mr. Stauffer, you have a comment?
So I think, I think you understand, and I think Mr. Ward definitely correctly defined why we were against the right-of-way vacation. I think the one thing that I do want to explain a little closer is, we do know the general location of the utilities. But what we don't have is the surveyed location of the utilities, as well as I don't think that we may have a survey of what's being requested to be vacated, but at this point, we don't know, we don't have that data in our hands. And then to decide if a driveway can fit in between without causing a conflict, I can't confirm that at this time since I don't have the exact locations of the utilities as they sit within the requested right-of-way vacation. And our concern, it's not so much that, and I know that under P&Z they talked about don't put the driveway on top of the utilities, and that is good. But of course, you know, we all need to understand that if you dig a hole, that hole will be wider than maybe one bucket full of an excavator. They'll have to be benched. You know, you'll have to have a slope to go down to the pipe. So of course, your excavation gets much wider to do any kind of repairs like that. So, you know, in the case of easements, we require 10 feet on either side of the pipe to make sure that we have proper access with our machinery, as well as that we can safely make an excavation to do any repairs that may be necessary.
So are these all attainable? Sir?
We will happily agree to make that another condition, that we will provide a survey showing the location of existing utilities, and that we will also agree to put the driveway, work out with the water resources and put the driveway where it's satisfactory to them.
Do you feel that
Yes,
can be done?
that can be it. Well, hopefully, yes. I don't know until we see the drawings and where everything is located. We can't answer that question. So, but that would certainly solve the issue.
I'm confident we can work it out.
Okay. Any further questions from council?
I just want to clarify. So with these conditions, plus the ones, Sean, that you just mentioned, you're okay with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Would city have any additional concerns with this agreement that we could see potential issues pending the survey's okay? Like issues needing to go in there, something goes wrong, going on private property,
The easement would give us permission to
access.
do
okay,
that.
and you're okay with that,
Sure.
as you stated, so.
That's reasonable.
Yes, and the Water Resources Department has prepared an easement. This is our typical easement. It's one of the exhibits within the report, and this is typically the easement that we use when we convert from a right-of-way to an easement. This is the language that we use, and it helps us maintain access as well as keeps us from incurring future liabilities associated with costs for repairs.
Okay, so if we were to approve this with conditions, the next step would be your variance would need to be put back on that was withdrawn? Is that correct?
If we lose the one that's pending.
But if I may, I think we probably should table it rather than
'Cause I-
approve it until all the conditions are met. You have an opinion on that?
If
Right,
I
what will
may-
happen is if you approve this, it's conditional. So this
Okay.
vacation is a conditional approval. If Mr. Ward moves forward and gets the variance he's
That's what I'm
requested
wondering.
the next meeting, he's just not going to grant the easement, and then this vacation will then be rescinded because he has not met the
Exactly.
conditions.
And we'd
So we
really
can-
like a decision tonight so we can
So
get
that
the
is entirely up to you,
get the
council.
Right.
courses down to one or two.
I
instead
just
of
want to make
four.
sure
Yeah.
that we do it in a proper way, that if it's,
I would agree with
conditions
you.
have to be met, obviously.
Correct.
I agree with you 100% that it makes sense to do it later, but if you're inclined to grant the request, it has to be conditional.
Sure.
Because on these conditions, and if he does not comply, then this will by its terms rescind
Counsel?
because it's fair to meet it.
It's up to you guys.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Sounds like we could approve this tonight with conditions. You're gonna find out your decision from BAA. Depending on that, you're gonna see which way you want to go. And I don't see any concerns from staff at this time.
Is that a motion?
Well, let me go, because
Go.
because there's so much here, that I actually was asking the city manager how to do this one. So I would move that we approve the right-of-way application number 1-2018, request to vacate a public right-of-way with P&Z conditions and Mr. Stouffer's concerns or conditions.
Okay, 1 second. Procedurally, you have already made a motion. Would you withdraw that motion so that he can make?
I didn't think I made, but yeah.
I don't.
Okay. Oh, well, I did.
Well, let's say it
There was
again.
no second to it.
Member Diesel, you would need to add to that and to approve resolution number 17, 2018. It's in that paragraph in D right.
Okay, okay.
With P and Z's recommended change.
Say that again, City Attorney, if you would.
Yeah.
The second part.
Right. And to approve resolution number 17, 2018.
And to approve what city attorney just added.
Second.
Excuse me,
I
could
have a
I just,
motion and a second, staff.
could I just clarify? I just want to make sure I understand. You are approving with the P and Z conditions plus the two conditions Mr. Ward just mentioned to provide survey of existing utilities and to locate the driveway in a place that's agreeable to water resources.
Correct.
Correct?
Thank you.
Correct.
Exactly.
Your second? Yes. Holds. All right. Any other comments from council? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
This requires a roll call because there is a
Oh, I'm sorry.
resolution.
It does, yes.
There's a resolution.
Clerk, roll call vote.
Member Diesel?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Behringer? Yes. Member Stokel? Yes.
you got it.
Thank you. And see, by not tabling, I don't have to come down here. You're going to see me again.
You make a
You don't want
good
to come
point,
see us
Lois.
again?
Thank you very much.
I never mind seeing you, Lois. Never mind. Okay. We're down to, where's that? Ordinance's first reading.
Yes, sir. Next item is item 10A, which is small-scale amendment for 2018 for San Mateo Village. This is a first reading of SSA for 2018, which does include 3 ordinances, 47, 2018, 48, 2018, and 49, 2018. Now I'll read all 3 ordinances at this time. Ordinance number 47, 2018, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances by amending ordinance number 60, 1988, which adopted the comprehensive plan of the City of Titusville by changing the land use designation on approximately .44 acres of property located at the southeast corner of Sisson Road and San Mateo Boulevard, having a parcel ID number 22 35 27 AV 89.03, by replacing the planned unit development future land use designation to the medium-density residential future land use designation and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 48, 2018, an ordinance amending ordinance number 5, 1993 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the zoning map made a part of said ordinance by reference, by replacing the present planned unit development zoning, PUDZ zoning district, with the residential manufactured housing, RMH1 zoning district on approximately .44 acres of property located at the southeast corner of Sisson Road and San Mateo Boulevard, having a parcel ID number 22 35 27 AV 89.03, and providing for an effective date. Ordinance number 49, 2018, an ordinance amending ordinance number 57, 2006 of the City of Titusville, Florida, by amending the conditions of approval of said ordinance for the planned unit development zoning, PUDZ zoning district, on approximately .44 acres of property located at the southeast corner of Sisson Road and San Mateo Boulevard, having a parcel ID number 22 35 27 AV 89.03, and providing for an effective date.
The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this action 6-0. The additional motion was approved by the ordinance amending the conditions of the approval of said ordinance for the planned unit development zoning PUDZ zoning district to remove the requested condition number 2, but add a new condition that the parking area will consist of a minimum of 20 spaces deeded to the San Mateo Homeowners Associations. This is your first reading of SSA 4-2018. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have, and this will not require a vote.
Any comments, Ms. Pasaka?
Not unless you have questions.
Any questions? See no comments or questions. Do we have any cards on this item? No, sir. All right. There's no action required at this point. Next item, sir.
We have no old business. We have no new business, and so you're up to petitions and requests by the public present.
Do we have anybody from the public that wants to speak on any item at this point? I see no one. That was an old light up here, Sarah?
Oh, sorry.
No, I should have got it. Mayor and council reports. You have my report written. City manager's report.
Is this
Oh,
okay
council,
first?
does
Yeah.
council have any
I have a
reports?
couple
on that?
things, if you don't mind, sir.
Not at all.
I was asked by a community member, I guess just yesterday, or maybe Sunday, if the city would be willing to do some sort of recognition of Rick Harris as he is retiring from Parks and Recreation, and there's some sort of gathering that I'm going to gain more information on, if we can just, I spoke to city manager, and I'm simply looking for some sort of thank you from the city, and how, whatever form that comes in. But they've asked me to present something to him. And again, I don't know all the details, but apparently something is going on Saturday. So I thought I would at least throw that out. Some of you are very familiar with Rick Harris. Maybe all of you are. But that would be my first issue of the day.
Any discussion? Everybody feel positive to it? Do
Got a
we need
couple
to vote on that?
nods.
We have a consensus?
Yes, sir. Would you like a letter under the mayor's name and to have Councilmember Diesel present?
Is that okay?
That's fine with me, yes, sir.
Great.
That would be awesome.
Thank
I
you.
think a little more personal than a certificate, actually.
Yeah.
My next thing is a bit of appreciation here, I guess, but many of you, well, all of you have seen Mr. Zell Hickman stand before us, and for a while now, and I've maybe been remiss in not bringing it up. I've wanted to recognize him in some way, kind of like we do down front. He is a man who I first met back in the early 90s when I coached his son, and then several of his other kids came through Titusville High School, and then after his kids were gone, he continued to help. He's now working over at the Gibson Education Center. I'm sure I'm getting that name wrong, but he works over there. He works in the community. He pretty much rides around and tells me some of the needs over there. He's just a guy who, I won't even guess his age, but he's been doing this a long time, and he's certainly somebody I'd like to recognize in some way. This can be something we can talk about as we go further, but just an outstanding young man who sits right there on the front row and listens, and then sometimes steps up and talks real slow.
Well, would you like it to go forward tonight?
I would like to, yes, I would. I mean, and I could get more information as we go, but, you know, what we need maybe would save when he came up, because I don't have all the stats and facts.
Same
but
as the last one, or resolution, or a letter?
I'd say a resolution would be really cool, if he could stand there and do
Everybody
that picture
agreeable
with
to
you
that?
guys.
We have a consensus?
Super.
Okay.
And my last one for today is, I talked to the city manager about this briefly. I don't know what we do to make this happen. I know we can't make it happen, but we can suggest it to happen. I would like to see us push a little bit for another post office in Titusville. There was a time, I can definitely count 3, if not 4. There was one down in the IRC shopping plaza next to River Lanes. There was one near where you live in the old area. There was one over there by the Winn-Dixie on Harrison. So, yeah, and I went to the post office just today, 1 o'clock. You can do that when you're retired. And so I went to the post office at 1 o'clock, and every parking spot was taken. And so you go past all the parking spots, and you get an arrow that points you out to US 1 and basically says, you're done. And I came back in about an hour, and it was fine. And I talked to the lady at the desk, and they have been talking about the fact that Titusville really needs at least a second post office. If you think about it, when we had 35,000 people, we had 3 post offices. We've got 47 going on 50,000 people, and we've got 1 post office. I understand that a lot of people in North Titusville will go to the MIMS post office. And MIMS has a post office for their population. I guess it just seems to me a pretty obvious thing that we should in some way request, or at least have them consider, a second post office in the southern part of the city.
I see it the same way you do. I don't know what the procedure is.
I don't either.
Mr. City Manager, can you?
Sir, we can certainly investigate and see what the procedure is to add a post office to the city, and
That would be great.
yes, sir.
And that's it.
Anything else? No.
Thank you so much.
Not at all. Anyone else have anything? Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I would just like to update you guys that I attended my first Space Coast League of Cities meeting last night, and it was, yes, it was really great. And I also mentioned this to the city manager already. He should probably be sending out the legislative priorities that they've done in the past and moving forward. So potentially at our next council meeting, if you guys have any ideas after looking over them, they're requesting that I bring them back for the November meeting, which we are hosting. So November 12th, I think it is. Yep, November 12th at Dixie Crossroads. So hopefully you guys can all be there as well.
Okay. We have to give input to you, or?
Yes, sir. What we'll do is we'll dust off your legislative priorities from last year. I believe there were 3, and bring it before council at your next meeting for approval or adjustment or changes, and then
Or addition.
and council member Stokel will take that forward to the space.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Next item? I mean, on
Or
the
council
city
members.
manager's report?
Okay. 1 action item and 3 information items. The first action item is it's customary to cancel the second meeting in December. This year, the second meeting falls on Tuesday, December 25th, day after Christmas. So that is Christmas, you're right. Sorry. It's appropriate for council to vote whether or not to cancel the second meeting. Please don't have a meeting on Christmas.
Guys, let's be here. Spend Christmas together.
Come on.
I'm just kidding.
Do I have a motion?
I move to cancel our second meeting in December on December 25th.
Do I have a second?
Come on, guys.
I know where I'll be.
Santa Claus ain't bringing anything to you, pal. I have a motion and a second. Is that from you, Dan?
Yes, second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign, passes unanimously.
First information item is Fab Lab status update. We've been having trouble getting hold of Fab Lab representatives to provide a written or verbal report to council as required. We did make contact with them today, finally, and they are going to put something together for our next meeting on the 23rd of October. So we're happy about that. Second is a Veterans Home Buyers Program and Inspiration Village that council may be interested in. We're looking forward to the completion of this major renovation in the South Street Target area and to provide another veteran a home to their family. Third, you have 2 letters of appreciation for students that attended the Certified Production Technician Training Scholarship Program that council provided to them. It's a letter of thanks for your generosity in getting them the training that has both produced jobs for both these individuals. Special meetings coming up. Next week, the 15th of October, will be the Boards and Commission recognition dinner, I'm sorry. And then November 27th at 10:30 will be the last regular meeting of the current council, followed by the swearing in of the new council at 11 o'clock, and then the regularly scheduled meeting of presentations at 5:30 on the 27th, and followed by the regular city council meeting on the 27th at 6:30. So a lot of activity on November 27th. And we have the impasse hearing for the IAFF on the 17th of October at 5:30. And that agenda will be published shortly. And subject to your questions, it completes my report.
Any questions?
I do.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, city manager, I know for myself, to be honest, the Fab Lab lack of response or initial response was very concerning to me. I think that we went out on a limb to support a very good initiative. Just looking at the operating hours to the public, they're open only 12 hours a week now, so they're down to 3 days, 4 hours a clip. There could be some very good things going on, but I know that we had put some clawbacks in that if they weren't meeting their end of the deal. So I would be very interested in pulling that back up, whatever the agreement between us prior to the next meeting, and see how we're doing with that. Because I think it was a substantial amount of money that we gave them.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'm not sure what you meant by pulling it back up. I mean, he's going to be here. When will he be here?
So we're hopeful that they'll provide a report to council at your next meeting on the 23rd of October.
Okay, I guess
But I think what the vice mayor is asking is
for is the information.
to take a
as
look at the
The agreement itself.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
City Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I do have a couple of items for council. First, At the special meeting in 2013, council has authorized my office to continue to acquire Sun Valley lots that will enable us to protect our well fields. I have been doing that for several years. I have another contract for purchase of a lot that the water department has requested that we acquire. So I'm asking for a motion of council to accept a warranty deed conveying Lot 10, Block 70 of Sun Valley to the city of Titusville.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, like sign? Passes unanimously, sir.
Thank you. The next item is, this afternoon, my office received an email from Mr. Rich Sawicka, who is the attorney for the union for your IEFF impasse hearing. Mr. Sawicka has requested an extension until Friday, October 12th at 5 o'clock to submit the union's proposals. We had agreed that that would be done this Wednesday by 5 o'clock, and he's asked to extend that time to Friday. So I told them I would address that with council and with regard to your desires and agreement to whether you'll grant that extension to submit his written proposals as to the union's position. Now, granted, if I do that, it'll also extend to the city's attorney as well to present his proposals.
Does that cause any issues that?
Well, it's just the amount of time you would have to review the items. You know, the impasse is Wednesday. We had originally agreed to provide them Wednesday to give you a week. It'll just reduce the time, you have to review them by 2 days.
Council, what's your pleasure?
I've not reviewed one, so I don't know how much time it takes to review. Is it something like an agenda or?
It depends on what is submitted. And what I mean is that it may be several pages. It depends on the attorney and how much documentation he is going to provide you to back up his position. He's not, so if you do grant till Friday, I would suggest it be earlier than 5 because we'd have to have staff here to transmit it to you.
Again, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm speaking with naivety. I have not had one of those before, and I don't want to get caught where I'm short. But I do have the weekend and a couple days into the next week, so I wouldn't think that would be a problem.
Okay.
If it is, I'll certainly let you know.
Will we, once we make that agreement, though, if it comes in and it's 4 days' work or something, then we're just stuck?
Right, this is his chance to he'll just have to present it at the meeting and, and he just wouldn't have the benefit of you being able to digest what he provided you. So.
Is this our attorney or their attorney?
Both. This is the union attorney's request.
Yeah, that's what I thought you said.
Correct, but of course, any extension would go to both of them.
Okay. Do you have a?
Yes, sir. I would be happy to grant the extension because if they need time to prepare, we're this far down the road, I would say give the time to prepare. But I think that conditional to that would be that we would then have to move the date. But just and if it's the next week, but what I don't want to do is get very complex arguments and try to hash them out without adequate time. So
are we able to move the date?
That would have to be coordinated between all the parties. I can't guarantee it would be. It could be another month.
Wait 1 second.
I would not know. Okay. And we don't have another meeting with council before then.
Member Stokel, you had.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I would not be in favor of moving the date. I'd almost rather say don't grant the extension or grant the extension. I'm kind of with Member Diesel. I think that would be plenty of time. I do have the weekend as well, but again, this is my first go around at it, so.
What happens if we don't grant the extension?
Wednesday.
I'll just tell them that council has held the date that they would like to receive the documents, and either they will comply or they won't. And then that doesn't prohibit him from making presentations at the hearing.
That's what I was going to say, any additional information.
But, typically we try and work with individuals. If he's asking for an extension to Friday, if you believe, I would recommend, it's a day and a half, 2 days. But that's entirely up to you. I could respond back to him that council is, if you're inclined, is willing to give him till sometime on Friday. I would just say 5 o'clock would be difficult, as he's requested, because staff isn't here to then disseminate it, so you wouldn't have it over the weekend. So if we're going to do it Friday, I'd back it up to give staff sufficient time to disseminate those packages to you.
Why don't you just say Thursday?
That's,
I mean, can we do that, so we know we'll have it for Friday?
so to
Close
council,
the
you,
business on Thursday?
you could do Friday at noon, you could do close of business Thursday, you know, it's a request.
All right,
That's
I guess
certainly up to
if they can
council.
get it out, though, if staff can get it out to us, if they get it by noon Friday?
That's more of a question for your city manager, it's his staff.
City manager?
Sir, Friday would be tough.
So Thursday would be
I
better.
would say Thursday, end of business, or noon on Friday.
I didn't hear that last part of it.
End of business Thursday would be better.
Okay.
But if you want to grant additional time, at least by noon on Friday, so we can review and get it out to you.
Well, that's the question, though. Are you confident that you can get everything out on Friday, or should we just go for Thursday?
Again, sir, I don't know what the
I say-
magnitude
I
of
think
stuff is.
Thursday.
Yeah, I know.
But
Yeah,
I'm
I wish I could
looking at it
advise, but I don't.
From staff's perspective of getting the information out,
Yeah,
you'd be more confident on Thursday?
I would, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm okay with Thursday at 5, and then if that additional day's work, they could present it at the hearing. If there's any changes or anything that they've figured out, I'd be okay with.
You want to make a motion?
Just from my input as an attorney, you know, putting these together, if it is documents and it is binding, then 5 o'clock, I don't know the difference between getting out at 5 o'clock on Thursday versus Friday morning. And that would give the
Okay.
attorney another night to really work on it if necessary, and give them every benefit of the doubt. So
Now
if
we're
city-
down to splitting hours here.
if this, right, well, if the city manager's, you know, maybe it could be Friday morning, 10 o'clock. That would give him time to, you know.
Is that what you just said? I was talked over you, I'm sorry. Friday morning, what time?
I believe Mr. Diesel said 10 o'clock, and I was saying, you know, something like that, that would give him another night.
Yeah,
Really would
I
give
want to be
everybody an
cooperative.
opportunity to prepare.
I digress back to what Vice Mayor Behringer said, and I don't want to move it either, but I can see his concern that if we're going to back up the information, we back up the meeting. I'd prefer not to do that as well. Again, I've not seen one of these, but if we can have it, you know, Friday, if I come back to you and say there's no way I can look at this, we'll go forward. I don't know. It's tricky.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
My only other question for staff, if we're extending the days, does that give you all enough time to prepare, and/or are we asking you for additional hardship? Because at the end of the day, we're gonna figure it out as a council, but I don't wanna I guess what I'm trying to do is, I'm not trying to jam us up for the sake of jamming us up.
No, sir, we actually have our attorney's presentation already.
Ready to go? Okay, all right.
So what I think,
Motion on this, or we just say okay, or what do we do?
Yeah. I'd either need a consensus or a motion that Friday around 10
make a
o'clock.
motion?
I'll make a motion that we would accept their report at by 10 a.m. on Friday morning.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say yes?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
And we will work real hard to get that out to you by Friday afternoon.
One other update. At the last council meeting, I believe it was Member Nelson had asked about a municipal resort tax. And I advised you that I would get you a memo back on that, and I have prepared that. But since Council Member Nelson is not here, I suggest I bring that to you at your next meeting.
That's fine. There's no time factor there. Is that it? Anybody else have any?
And Mayor,
sir?
one more thing before you close is our esteemed colleague and city attorney lost his father this past week, longtime resident of Titusville. So I ask that the council keep Richard and his family in your thoughts and prayers during this most trying time.
Certainly, and I know all the council members really regret your loss and give our condolences on it. He was a fine man. I knew him as well.
I appreciate it. Just for a little history, you know, he was with the Crofton Law Firm that represented the city with Max Brewer back in the 50s, 60s, hired Dwight. He took over. He did it for 40 years. And then I had the pleasure of succeeding him, so that was appreciated.
Okay. With
One
that-
last thing, real quick, because we'd be remiss again. I guess the Panhandle suddenly has a Category 3 hurricane coming their way, and we certainly want to think and keep them in our thoughts.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Not seeing any, I will declare this meeting adjourned.